Welcome to the Alumni Center. First of all, I want to give a big thanks to the Provost and to the Dean of Science who are supporting this event, for us all to be here. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Bill Milsom, who's going to tell you all about Jessica.
Thought we'd give you a little bit of background on Jessica's connection to UBC and how all this came about. Jessica was born in Maryland, has a Swedish-Israeli background. She did a bachelor's degree at Brown University, did her master's degree at the International Space University in France, then worked for NASA for a while. She did a PhD at Scripps Institute of Oceanography, working in the Antarctic and out of San Diego on penguins and northern elephant seals, Weddell seals, looking at adaptations for extreme diving to deep depths. At the end of that, she came up here to UBC to work with me. Our work was on high-flying birds, particularly at that time a species that spends its winters in India, its summers in Mongolia, and to get back and forth flies over the Himalaya. So it's flying 7,000 feet, or 7,000 meters or higher with flight, which is one of the most energetically expensive forms of locomotion. So Jessica worked with me in Mongolia, but mostly here, flying birds in a wind tunnel. And to do that, we had to get the birds at hatching. They imprinted on her, so she was mom. We raised them so they would wear a mask and a backpack, and then we could instrument them to fly in the wind tunnel where we could measure breathing, metabolic rate, heart rate, and we could expose them to gases as low as the summit of Mount Everest. So it was amazing. When she was finished with me, she went and was a research assistant professor at Harvard and then was recruited back into NASA. And she was here for 5 years, and she loves UBC, and that's why she has designated us as one of the audiences that she wants to speak to while she's up on the space station. This is her second time in space. She went up in right at just before the start of COVID. So she was in space when COVID broke out down here on Earth. And this is what she returned to. But she was up there for 8 months that time and did the first all-woman spacewalk with Christina Koch, who was one of her partners at that time. Christina's now getting ready to go up on Artemis 2, which is coming soon, I believe April 1st. And Jessica's up for the second time now and is up for 8 months on this go. So she loves San Diego, where she spent so much time. She loves it here at UBC. She's been back to visit us several times, and it's going to be fun to see her today. But that's a little bit of her background and why UBC has been selected to be one of the few audiences that she will speak to.
Great, thanks. And now we're just going to keep the line open to initiate the communications with the Johnson Space Center and then up to the space station.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready for the event.
University of British Columbia, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Doug Altschuler at the University of British Columbia. How do you hear me?
Hey, Doug, it's so wonderful to hear your voice. I have you loud and clear. How me?
Oh, we hear you so well, Jessica. Oh my God, you're wearing the t-shirt. That is so great. You're wearing the UBC Zoology t-shirt that Sylvia, oh, that is wonderful. Well, Jessica, we're calling you here from the Jack Poole Hall of the Alumni Center. This is where we had that wonderful retirement party for Bill that you were able to fly in for. So now I'm gonna pass you over to Bill, who's gonna say hi, and then we're gonna ask some student questions.
Hi, Jessica. It's so great to see you again. It was wonderful seeing you just before the launch and to meet your family. But Today's event is for the students here, so I'm going to keep this short, and I'm going to start right away with the questions. And our first student is Rathan. So Rathan.
Hello, Dr. Meir. My name is Rathan, and I'm a high school student. And my question is, what is something that is really easy on Earth that is surprisingly difficult in space?
There are a lot of things that come to mind, but one of the stories that I usually tell are the first days that you arrive in space, especially on your very first trip. And all of the things that seem so easy that just blend into the background on Earth, like, for example, having a drink of water or going to the bathroom or getting your food or just putting something down on a table, when suddenly gravity is removed and you're in this realm of microgravity where everything floats, it's a totally different understanding for your brain. So you arrive here, and I like to describe it as being like a newborn. You come to space and you've been training for years and years and years, and you're completely prepared for all of the highly technical tasks like how to operate the hardware and do the experiments and use the spacesuit. But what you can't really prepare for are those simple things like going to the bathroom and drinking water and eating, washing your hair. Where do you put stuff? How do you find stuff? Those are all the things that your brain has to really adapt. And it's really incredible as a physiologist. You can really feel that plasticity of the brain as these new neural networks are formed, because in those early days, you have this different sense of spatial awareness and navigation, where I would sometimes jump if I was working down here in what we call the deck, and then I had to jump up here to what we call the overhead, or you would kind of compare to the ceiling. In those first 2 weeks, my brain would do this real flip-flop, and I would kind of interpret that now as the floor because my body was in contact with it. So it must be the floor, thinking from this gravitational context that we come from. But after that 2 weeks, you can see how the brain just adapts, and you have this plasticity ongoing and these new networks formed. And then suddenly, after about those first 2 weeks, I think I was navigating in a different way, just using spatial cues like, okay, that computer's over there. That means that this is on that side. And if I want to go to the kitchen, it's that way. So those simple things, I think, are the things that are really the most difficult at first, but then you get used to as you adjust.
Thanks, Jessica. Next question is from Melody.
Hi, Dr. Meir. My name's Melody, and I'm a Bachelor of Science and Master of Management student. I'm hoping to study physiology. I was wondering, I have curly hair just like you, so what's your routine like in space? How do you manage that?
Well, I gotta say, Melody, I really love my what I call my space hair. I kind of get this it's much curlier in space than it is on the ground because, of course, gravity isn't pulling down at my curls, and it all kinds of stands up here in this sort of like curly afro look, which I'm totally into. So how do we wash our hair? Well, we don't have running water here. We don't have a real shower. So when we take our showers, we kind of just have this hygiene towel that we soak it with water from the water dispenser, and then we kind of do like a sponge bath. But you can get a lot of water, so you get pretty clean. And then for your hair, you just I've got a water bag over here. So this is just a water bag that we have all of our drinks in, water, coffee, whatever. We attach it to that same water dispenser, and then we drink out of here. And so I take one of these water bags to wash my hair, and I just slowly squeeze out water all kind of along the base of my hair and in a few different spots around. And then you start working the water through your hair, and we have a no rinse shampoo, and then, whatever other kind of conditioner and stuff like that we want to fly, stuff that's approved anyway. And then you kind of towel it off, get all that water in there, and it's incredible. Like, it really does. Of course, it's not as great as a running water shower, but you do feel surprisingly clean.
Thanks, Jessica. Next question is from Kevin.
Hi, Dr. Meir. It's great to see you, and it's great to see UBC being represented in space. My name is Kevin. I'm a cognitive systems graduate from UBC, and I'm a current law student. My question for you is, how might animal adaptations on Earth inspire spacesuit designs for the Artemis era?
Kevin, that is a great question, and I hope it's something that maybe you and others down there are working on. I know there have been a lot of researchers that are using this kind of biomimicry to solve some of these problems. Some of the things that I have heard about are some of the suits, like a type of compressive suit that actually helps regulate blood flow in microgravity. So there was this suit called the biosuit that used mechanical counterpressure to pressurize instead of gas. So those are kind of, I think those were inspirations from leg vessels in giraffes, that when baby giraffes brace, when they're young, their blood vessels can thicken and tighten and help regulate that blood flow. So using that kind of biomimicry to inspire suit design. The Z2 suit at NASA, that was, I think, sort of inspired by the ocean, where they were using kind of like an armored plate system for fish and reptiles, and even incorporating some bioluminescent qualities. There was an experiment when I was up here last time that was called GRASP, and that one might not be specifically for suits, but it was kind of just for astronauts in general, or people in microgravity in general, that was inspired by the microscopic hairs on gecko feet. And so it was like developing some new adhesives, some dry adhesives that might be able to help astronauts grip things in space. And I think a lot of the inspiration from animals, from animal-like movements in thinking about these new suits, is to make them, to allow more flexibility in natural movements. I can tell you I did a spacewalk last week in our existing suit that was designed way back in the 60s and 70s, and it doesn't have that ease of movement, because perhaps they weren't quite as forward thinking and incorporating lessons from biology like we are today. So hopefully these new suits will draw from some of those lessons, and we'll see. Let me know if you have any specific ideas.
Our next question, Jessica, is from Rin.
Hi, Dr. Meir. My name is Rin, and I'm an economics and international relations undergraduate here at UBC. The question that I wanted to ask you is, what is the hardest thing about being in space?
The hardest thing about being in space, I think, is different for everybody. For some people, it's missing their family and friends and not being present for that kind of separation. For some people, it's just some of the physical things that we do up here. I would say the most challenging thing that we do up here are certainly spacewalks. Those are incredibly physically and mentally challenging, but that's, I think, also why they're so incredibly rewarding. And yeah, I think it's a little bit different for everyone. I think for me, this mission, it's much different than my first mission. On my first mission 6 years ago, I wasn't married and I didn't have any kids. And now I have a husband and a 3-year-old daughter. So for me, the hardest part about being up here is being away from them.
Thanks, Jessica. Next question is from Brandon.
Hi, Dr. Meir. Thanks for joining today. My name is Brandon. I'm a bachelor student in commerce. And I was just wondering, if you could use one song to describe being in space, what would it be and why?
That's a good question, Brandon. I think that would be different for everyone too. But I've tried to think of some of, there are of course all the original classics that come to mind, like David Bowie's Space Oddity, and a lot of people back then, I think that came out in the late 60s. A lot of people thought that really captured this feeling of isolation and exploration and all of those things. And I think we've come a long way since then as well. It was Across the Universe by the Beatles back in that same kind of time frame. And if we go even further back, there's The Planets by Gustav Holst. But I think for me, some of the more modern, maybe kind of alternative indie type music that really catches me are things like the Beach House, if you know Beach House and Space Song, We Are All Made of Stars, Moby. I'm a big Beastie Boys fan as well, so Intergalactic. Fly Me to the Moon, of course, perhaps is one of the more fitting, timely one, as we really have the Artemis program about to launch and we're setting our sights on the moon. Then there's Man on the Moon from REM, Walking on the Moon, of course, by the Police. So there's so many, but those are just some of the first ones that come to mind.
Thanks, Jessica. Next question is from
Adrija. Hello, Dr. Meir. My name is Adrija. I am an anthropology student here at UBC. My question for you is, what is something you did not expect about your time in space?
I think that question the answer is probably similar to the one I gave earlier. And the thing, it's not that it's unexpected, but the thing that you can't prepare for, we train so much, like I mentioned, for these really technical tests, but you just can't prepare for what it really feels like to live and work in microgravity, and what it feels like as a human to experience looking at the Earth from above. You've heard all the different things that other astronauts say, and a lot of people talking about having this very strong feeling of environmentalism, looking at the Earth in this very thin, tenuous band of an atmosphere that supports all life, and truly understanding how utterly gorgeous it is, how precious and how fragile it is, and that we have to appreciate it and take care of it. And I think I already had that appreciation. I was a strong environmentalist even before I came up here. But those kinds of feelings that you just, they're not necessarily unexpected, but you don't know how it will feel for you, how it will affect your brain, how it will affect you philosophically, and just understanding what it's like to live and work in microgravity every day. I mean, in the beginning, you constantly are losing stuff because in Earth, you have this omnipresent gravitational vector. You have everything you navigate with this reference of down. You put your things down on the table and they stay there, or on the floor. You don't really use all of this 3D volumetric space like you can see around me. It's a hoarder's paradise up here. We use every possible surface. And so when you first get up here, and like I was mentioning earlier, if I came up here to work and I'm working on the ceiling, and then I put my drink bag down here, and then I come over here and I'm on the floor working, or then I'm over here on this wall, I suddenly don't remember at all where I put my drink. Get in contact with so many surfaces that I'm not sure where it went. And then you start looking around and there's so much stuff everywhere that you can't even find it for a while, and stuff just gets lost. It's amazing. You have to keep track of everything. Take your hand off something, it floats away in the ventilation and it's suddenly gone. It disappears instantly, and then out of nowhere it'll sometimes just come back and be floating right in front of your face again. So all of that stuff brings a lot of unexpected outcomes to the day.
Our next question is coming from Rubal.
Hi, Dr. Meir. Thank you for being here today. My name is Rubal Bansal, and I'm a second-year undergraduate student here at UBC studying neuroscience. And my question is, do you think in the future we will see more career options involved in space exploration?
I certainly hope so. And I do think that is true. There's a lot of stuff going on with the US government right now, as I'm sure you guys are paying attention to, and what it means for federal employees and the changes that have come. But I think in the realm of space exploration, and actually even in the government sector of space exploration, we're about to see another big rise in hiring. So that is very exciting for us as civil servants, because it was a little bit dismal in recent years with things that were happening. But even more than that, I think there's this huge rise, of course, in more of the private space sector. It used to be that really only government agencies were going to space. It was too risky and people didn't have enough money and weren't able to buy off on enough risk to do it. But now we have so many different companies that are getting involved in space in different ways, maybe not even orbital flight, but suborbital flights. And of course, we have some companies like SpaceX and Axiom that are doing orbital flight as well. And then there are partnerships with NASA that enable sometimes private citizens to come up here to the space station as well that aren't professional astronauts. So we have so many different ways of getting to space. And a lot of times people think it's a competition between the government and these private companies, and it's really not. It's a partnership. We are working with them all the time. Governments these days just don't have enough money to do it and enough resources to do it all on their own. So by having these international and partnerships with outside in the private sector, we're enabling so much more. So to me, it's an incredibly exciting time, because there are so many different ways to be involved in space than there used to be, and that's growing and growing and growing, and will be more accessible to the general public the further we go. So I definitely do see a lot of opportunities for growth in terms of jobs, in terms of exploration and excitement as we go. So yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully you guys can join us and help solve some of these problems, or come up here yourself one day.
So Jessica, a couple of quick questions here. This time you went up on the Dragon. How was it this time compared to your last trip up?
So the Soyuz and the Dragon are really different vehicles. The Soyuz that I flew the first time, the Russian rocket and spacecraft, it's a very old, reliable system. It's been flying for decades and decades, and there have been some upgrades along the way. but it's, you know, really like night and day from Dragon, because Dragon is this new modern machine. It's all touch screens and displays. There's no real instruments to fly with, there's no controllers that you can actually fly with versus the Soyuz. One of the big differences too, in the Soyuz, you're covered by a fairing at launch, so you don't have a view until that fairing is exposed and you're in space. But in Dragon, there are actually windows, so I couldn't see from my seat, but you can catch a glimpse from some of the other seats of lifting, coming off of the launch pad and seeing Florida below and waving at people like you that were there to support us. So there's also differences in the profile. You get about the same experience, about the same G, so the gravitational forces are about the same. Another big difference for the Soyuz, I landed on land when I came home, and this time when I come back, we'll land in the water. So those are some of the pretty big ones. And I think personally for me, this one felt so different because the most rewarding thing for me for this flight has been the mentorship aspect. I'm flying right now up here with 3 first-time space flyers, and so it's really rewarding to be on the other side and to be able to give back to them and help them and have, you know, this incredible experience as best of one as they can.
So Jessica, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Could you give us a bit of a tour of the room you're in?
I can tell you a little bit about this module. Normally we do our PAO events in the module that's directly across from me, the Japanese module, because there's a little bit more space in there, and we can kind of do a disappearing act into this little module that's above us. Right now, though, there's a different activity going on in the Japanese module that ESA astronaut Sophie Adno is working on. So I'm actually here in the European module called Columbus. It is part of the US operating segment like the Japanese one is, and then all of our main modules built by NASA. The Russian segment's a little bit further back that way, and this is the direction that we're flying in right now. So this is station forward, and you can see that like everything is kind of arranged in these sort of what we call racks. So they're pretty much interchangeable throughout the station. So I could actually take this huge rectangular unit called a rack, I could move it out to a different location. So the modules are round, they're like cylinders, and the back of these racks is curved. So you have racks with a curved back and on all 4 faces, which is why then you have this kind of rectangle inside. Whoops, I'm knocking my flag over as we're giving you a tour. One of the nice things about Columbus is that it houses a lot of our physiology equipment. We have a couple different ultrasounds in here. We have a centrifuge. I did a blood draw just the other day and used the centrifuge. And I use the ultrasound for another vascular experiment where we're looking at some different blood vessels and what's happening in blood clots that we've seen in some astronauts. There's a lot of different equipment in here. There's a fluid sciences rack. There's a biolab rack. A lot of the main European hardware is in here. So it's an awesome place to work for a physiologist.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much. This has been such a special event. It's been so wonderful to see you so proud of UBC, and thanks so much for giving us the time.
And Jessica, really looking forward to seeing you in person next time you're back on Earth.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Doug, so much for setting this up, and to all the students for the excellent questions. Keep on researching and exploring so you can solve a lot of these big problems and hit all the basic science along the way. I am absolutely so proud to be a representative of UBC and to keep representing you throughout the mission. So please stay tuned for anything else that might come your way.
This is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.